thesis study, a problem statement, study objective, and the research question, and the methods that I used to conduct this research, and the results, and I will present my results, the analysis, the barriers, and the overcoming strategies, and finally the conclusion. And at the end, we will have a Q&A session. When I took Dr. Abdelhamid's class in lean construction, I was fascinated by the idea of improving construction labor productivity with the tools, with the theories that it was presented. They looked so fascinating. But it was when I did my internship with the Calhoun County Road Department, I noticed that I got a real-time experience going to the job site and see how the construction productivity looks like from the real-world experience. And even in a small project, bridge replacement project like this size, I noticed several delays and major reworks in that project. So this took me to think about this more academically from an academic standpoint, and then I researched about the construction productivity throughout the history. And in the literature, I found fascinating studies about that in the past 50 years, the construction labor productivity is downfall. A study showed that more than 50% of the contractors and owners found that there is a 10%, at least 10% decrease in the overall construction productivity, and an additional 22% has seen no improvement in the construction productivity. And another study found that between 25 to 50% of the construction cost goes to the waste. And still the traditional and conventional methods of construction project delivery methods like design, bid, build are still dominant. So then I come to this solution that what is the solution for this? We have a challenge. We have a problem which is a construction labor productivity. The tools that offered by lean principles and methods is an opportunity to resolve some of the issues within the construction labor productivity issues. So before that, then we will I would like to ask you, how many of you guys have heard about lean construction before? One, two, quite a few. So yeah, lean construction is a modern and innovative delivery of the construction projects, which the respect for people stays at the core value of this method. It's a system that optimizes the whole, it removes the waste, it focuses on the flow and the process, and it generates value. And it focuses on a continuous improvement. These are good stuff. But since the adoption of lean, more research was on how to develop tools and less on what are the barriers in implementing this. So this made me to look at to ask myself a question that what are actually the barriers and overcoming strategies in implementing this? This question has led me to break it down into several study objectives, which is 3. I first identified the lean implementation barriers within the various industries. Because of the limited literature in the construction sector, I focused in construction, but also studied the barriers within the other industries, such as manufacturing, public sector, and small and medium business enterprises. Next, I wanted to test these barriers that I found within the literature to the transportation sector within the US context. Because of the nature of the lean construction, which is a lot of it's cultural, it's organizational, so things are different. So I wanted to test this within the transportation sector in the US. So I did this survey and gathered the stakeholders' perception on that. And then I analyzed the responses, prioritized the barriers, and recommended strategies for that. The methodology that I used after developing the idea, I did the thorough literature review. The literature review, the procedure that I used for doing the literature review was a snowballing. So I used the backward and forward pass for the references that cited the paper and the paper which was citing the references. So I found quite a heavy literature on the existing barriers, and then those barriers were actually made the basis for my survey questionnaire, and then I analyzed them and then concluded the results. what was interesting in the literature review was that this issue of barriers within the lean construction principles and methods is not something in the US. It's a universal thing. I found that literature that a study in the US, Norway, and Brazil found that there are too many vague interpretations of lean. There is no standard concrete definitions for what is lean. And in another survey, in another research by Bechtel's international project found that lean is actually incompatible with the traditional state transportation authorities. And in the Chinese sector, there was a lack of long-term philosophy for implementing lean. And in the US manufacturing sector, there were financial constraints and attitude issues. So then I made this barriers that I found in the literature, which was around 37. They were initially 87 barriers. Then I looked at them more clearly and I merged them together and grouped found into 37 different barriers. And then I further clustered them into 7 types and then programmed them along with demographic questions in the Qualtrics software. And then I calculated my sample size, which came about 141 people. And then I piloted the survey to see what is the initial the reaction to the survey. I piloted with 3 people, and then I incorporated the changes and then administered the survey. The organizations that have helped me to reach out to my survey respondents were MDOT, Michigan Infrastructure and Transportation Associations, and the rest. There were people from the owner's side, from the constructor's side, from the designer's side. 119 responses were received, but only 47 responses were complete and usable. So I relied on the 47 responses to do my analysis. The people who have participated, majority of them were from the owner's side. On the contractor side, these were the people with their roles and responsibility within each of them, and majority of the people who have participated had more than 20 years of experience. So this is the survey results. I used the 7-point Likert scale and calculated the mean value. What was interesting here was that 37 barriers were not actually all of them identified to a higher degree of agreement by the Michigan transportation sector. Only 6 of them stood up. A lot more, most of the barriers were identified in the Likert scale of 3, in some of them 2, and majority of them in 4. So these are the mean values for the barriers that I found. In these barriers, 6 barriers are each, there was a training issue within the transportation sector. People say that there's a lack of training and mentoring in lean. People say that there's a cultural issue of not a group culture, shared vision and consensus. And there was an awareness issue. Employees and workers are not aware of lean. And there is a failure to document to document the lean benefits and the cultural difference between project stakeholders, general contractor, and the prime subcontractors, and there's a lack of reward system for the people who implement these methods. Digging into each of these 6 barriers, I just picked 3 for the sake of time, and then I compared the findings in the survey with those of the literature. So in the survey, on the lack of training, majority of the people, 17% strongly agreed, 47% agreed that there is a lack of training, and it ranked number 1 within this study, within my study. But it ranked number 7 in the Chinese and UK construction context, and it ranked number 15 in the US manufacturing sector. So it seems that there is more focus on the US manufacturing sector when it comes to the lean principles than in construction. And in the second barrier, I found that that majority of the people believe that there is a lack of shared vision and consensus, but it ranked number 7 within the Libyan construction context. And the employees and workers are not being aware of that. In my survey, it was number 3, and in the literature review, it ranked number 9 in the Chinese construction context. So this is the summary of all the barriers that I noticed with the direction of survey findings and the literature review findings. As you can see, majority of the findings, other than the technical, are more into, I think they have a bigger percentage in the survey than in the literature review. For example, the knowledge and skills barriers in my study had a higher percentage than in the literature, and so forth. So then I also asked the respondents to those of them that have actually identified these barriers and show their degree of agreement or disagreement, that what are the overcoming strategies? What do you think, what should be done in order to overcome these strategies? And I noticed that they have said that there is a need for training. This training should not be a standard way of just training a one-on-one. This should be a continuous improvement mentality and not a single answer solution. So this is a different type of training that the people have requested, that we need to have that type of things. And employees should be rewarded and empowered to make the field decisions. A lot of the lean principles is relied on the workers, on the last planner, on the person who does the physical work. So if they did not have enough decision-making role in the project, they would have not been encouraged to implement these strategies. An interesting thing was that people actually are interested and they want an implementation guidebook. They do not know how to and where to start. So they say we need an implementation guidebook to do the lean stuff. And also even though the state and legislative barriers were not identified in my study, they were being questioned, but the people did not say that this is a barrier. But still they say that we need state and federal agencies to kind of be a little bit more flexible with their policies and less stringent. And also, while doing the infrastructure, road and transportation projects, it's using public money, it should be competitive. They agree with that, but they want more power to have their lower tier contractors to selected by them. So to conclude, I found that people are interested in lean construction. They believe that there is a construction productivity issue within the industry. So they are interested in this stuff. This is an opportunity. They believe that this is an opportunity to improve their the productivity growth. I found the barriers with doing the literature review. The literature review was heavy enough that provided me the basis for the survey. Then I tested the findings of the literature within the Michigan context. I analyzed the data and I found the barriers, the top 6 barriers and the top 7 strategies for them. I found that most of the barriers are in the knowledge and skills related barriers, cultural and attitudinal barriers. Some of them are structural and organizational. And I found that there is a need for more training in this sector. So if transportation sector wants to address some of the challenges in their labor productivity issues, they need to focus on some sort of training. And this training should be in such a way that engage workers, that should encourage group culture and shared vision and close some of the cultural gaps that exists. Of course, this study, like any other study, has its own limitations. I needed more data to perform comparative analysis of how the constructor's perspective are different from the owner's perspective and from the designer's perspective. This is a gap for the future work. Thank you, and it's open now for the questions.
Well, we'll open it to the public if you folks have any questions for Elyas.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
I'm afraid to congratulate you, so they will kick me out. So great presentation. I'm going to ask a higher level, a bigger picture question. So you mentioned in the introduction that the philosophy of lean construction, the underlying philosophy of lean construction is transforming material to goods. while keeping the flow as well as delivering value that a customer wishes to pay for.
Exactly.
So, where do you think these barriers, or through your study, where do you realize that these barriers, or the barriers you identified falls on?
Mhm.
Is it on delivering the value? Is it interrupting the flow?
Mhm.
Because the transformation happens, but what do you think
The barriers
the
are?
barrier falls mostly on?
Well, thank you for the question. It's a great question. The barriers that are fall is that a lot of people within my research, people are not aware of this thing. You know, when I went to the job site and worked with one of the small local contractors of a bridge replacement project, they were doing a project and they were doing the same thing that they were doing 50 years ago or 30 years ago. When I talk about these new stuff that I study in an advanced level in a school, they simply don't know. So a lot of them are not aware of it within this sector. But when I looked at the literature, I found that there is a bigger issue. You know, when it comes to the companies, the top management are not committed enough, or they do not have that long-term philosophy to do this. They just want to have some touches on the lean construction. They do not have such a commitment to drive their entire business strategy with lean principles. That is an issue, because a majority of these new innovative techniques within the construction industry, companies want to have some touches on that on their business model. But when it comes in an ideal situation that they should run their entire business and strategy on a lean performance, I found in the literature that there is a long-term philosophy needed for that.
So it's basically compromising the value,
Exactly.
whatever customer is values.
Exactly.
Versus what they deliver.
Mhm.
Did he answer your question?
Yes.
Are you positive?
Sure.
Just for my further information, you have two categories which look similar to me, so I just wanted to know the difference between them. One is knowledge and skills, and the other is technical.
Knowledge, in this categorization, knowledge and skills were mostly the awareness issue. You know, how much knowledge do they have about lean construction? And when I talked about technical is to do stuff, to do the labor that actually does the stuff. It's not about the principles that, you know, with the lean construction, you cannot do the foam work, or you cannot do the carpentry work at the job site. Those are the technical skills. But the principles that that the person needs to know in order to do a more productive work, those are the knowledge and skills related.
Satisfaction.
Did he answer your question?
Absolutely.
Yusuf Arman?
Howard, as I'm perceiving that your subject matter is directly restricted to transportation.
That's right.
Are you familiar with what happened? I'm from Atlanta. Are you familiar with what happened to our highway system there recently?
No.
We lost a part of it. It burned down.
It collapsed.
It collapsed.
Really?
And I just wondered how you would apply your theories, how you would apply your lean construction to an instance like that. We lost a main thoroughfare, a main highway,
Mhm.
Highway 85.
That's right. So that loss is an issue for them, but lean construction cannot directly address that thing.
That type of thing.
Yeah. Lean construction is a paradigm, is a philosophy, is a different way of thinking
I
to do the
understand.
projects. So how, if lean construction can address some of the quality issues in the future, that remains a question.
Mhm.
That it depends on why the highway have collapsed. What were the reasons? Were there any
It
design?
Like heat.
Yeah. So if there is a design or structural integrity issues, that's a different issue. That needs an engineering analysis to do that. But to do the quality work, I think that lean construction with the principles and the collaborative nature of the work that this principles has, when they make or rebuild the project, there is a potential that make that project to a higher level of quality.
I know I'm not supposed to ask questions now, but wouldn't like concepts like just-in-time delivery or having a mature supply chain where you can get these girders as fast as possible,
Right.
part of your lean construction concept, that if you are a lean contractor, you know your supplier, you have a partnership with your supplier, you have a mature supply chain that allows you to get these component needed for the bridge, you have everybody educated on how to deal with emergency situations like this. So that built-in resiliency in the process of lean construction would help in a process like this?
Definitely. So the lean construction is delivering a quality project. A quality project is a project that finishes on time, on budget, and with the specs and the specification it has. With the tools that Dr. El-Gafy has mentioned and other tools such as A3 and the big room planning and the collaborative nature of the lean construction, the lean stuff, everything is being collaborated with the team, and they can deliver a much higher quality project. Especially when the project is, because it's transportation sector, this is an issue of traffic flow. They cannot, they need to have this bridge or road as fast as they could. Because of that, these principles would definitely be a very good asset for them.
Well, his friend, do you have any questions for Elyas?
Not at the moment, just
Come on,
listening
you are
and
his friend, you should
Yeah.
embarrass him.
He must be
a
going to
little
your
bit.
presentation soon, too.
What about you, sir? I think you read it multiple times, so you would
I
be
did,
able,
yeah.
so you would be able to ask some of the questions.
Well, in one of the problems, a big problem identified is the declining productivity of 10%. How quickly, if you adopt lean principles, can you reverse that and start to see a tangible return for better productivity?
There's actually a lack of research, which is a peer-reviewed journal paper that should have been done by different authors that reflect the true question for that. But Lean Construction Institute, who is actually doing a lot of lean trainings, they found that the owners and the architects and the engineers are 70% are happier with the lean principles after they did their study. But this is just limited to their institute. I did not find a study that shows that is a peer-reviewed journal that shows that lean construction has addressed this percentage of the work.
So is that part of why it has resistance in being adopted?
Well, that could be one of the things, but was not necessarily identified in this study by the people.
Did he answer your question? Dr. Berghorn? Come on.
I gave him all my questions yesterday.
Give him a harder one than yesterday.
I'll give him a harder one if I stick around for the closed door.
Okay, we'll invite you to stick around. So, thanks again.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time. At this moment.